Hi, this is paper 1, IBSL, TZ1, that's time zone 1. So let's start this paper. So the first question is, what are the units of the molar mass? So molar mass units are, they always grams per mole. So which information does the molecular formula provide? We have to see this one. Like molecular formula, it always tells us the actual number of atoms in a molecule, always. A student heated a known mass of zinc powder in an open crucible until there is no change in mass and recorded the final. So, this information tells us the percentage composition and empirical formula. Because for the molecular formula, we really need the MR of the compound, and we do not know the MR of the whole compound. So that's why 1 and 2. Okay. Now we have the PV is equal to nRT, and we have to calculate the molar mass. PV is equal to nRT is the expression. What is the molar mass? So N is moles, so it should be mass over MR. PV is equal to mass over MR times RT. So in order to find MR, it should be mass times RT divided by PV. So mass is given to us, that is 40, times R is 8.31, times temperature is 290, divided by pressure, which is given 98, times, that is in kilopascal, so 10 to the power 3, times volume, which is in the centimeter cube, it should be in meter cube, so 220 times 10 to the power negative 6. So if you simplify it, it becomes A is the answer. What's the maximum number of electrons in 4? So it should be 32. How do we know? In n is equal to 1, the electrons are 2. N is equal to 2, electrons are 8. N is equal to 3, electrons are 18. N is equal to 4, electrons are 32. What are the number of neutrons and electrons in this? So how many electrons there? There are 2 minus charge. So there must be 2 more electrons. And how many neutrons? 32 minus 16, it should be 16. So that's why B is the answer. What is the correct labeling of blocks? It is always S, it is always D, it is always P, it is always F. So S, D, F, P. So D is the answer. What can be deduced from the period number of the element? It tells the total number of shells. And highest occupied energy level, because total number of shells, so it tells us the energy level, and also tells the sub levels, how, like lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. So lithium has 2s1, it has 2s2, it has 2p1, 2p2, 2p3, 2p4, 2p5. So number of sublevels and this, but number of outer electrons we can't say that. So that's why this is the answer. How many electrons will be gained or lost when element with electronic configuration this forms an ionic bond? So in first shell there are 2 electrons, then at second shell there are 5 electrons. So it gain 3 electrons, because that's nitrogen or phosphorus in the fifth group. So it has 5 electrons, it has to gain 5 electrons, because it has already 3 unpaired. So it needs more 3 electrons which pair up with the p orbital. That's why it gain free electron. Which substance is likely to have ionic lattice structure at 298? So its melting point should be high, because ionic compounds, they have very high melting and boiling point. And conduct electricity in liquid state? Yes. So all the ionic compound conduct due to free ions. Due to free ions. Why does the melting point of element decrease down the group? Because the radius is going to increase. Why? Because melting point of the metal going to decrease because the strength of the metallic bond is going to decrease, and it depends on radius, not in atomic mass, not in like shells, not in ionization energy. In which molecule does the central atom has incomplete octet? So incomplete mean, if you look at the boron, in fact every element belongs to third group. When it make a covalent bond, it is always the incomplete d orbital. Incomplete. Why? Because it has 3 electrons, and all the electrons if shared, still it has 6 electrons in outer shell. That's why D is the answer. Which allotrope, oxygen or ozone, has the stronger bond between oxygen atoms, and which absorb higher frequency? So stronger bond and absorb the higher frequency. So stronger bond is always in oxygen, and higher frequency also oxygen, because ozone has a very weak force and less energy it absorbs. Which is the enthalpy of combustion of propanol in kilojoules according to the following data? So delta H is equal to M C delta T divided by moles. So M is mass, which is given. C specific heat capacity 4.2 times change in temperature 24. Okay. In kilojoules, mass of water is 75. It should be there. It should be there. So these are wrong. And these are the moles we have to divide. Look at this. And multiply by 1000. Why? Because the answer in joules, we have to divide the energy by 1000 to get the answer in kilojoules per mole. That's why D is the answer. D is the answer. Which diagram shows enthalpy change for dissolving solid X in water if the temperature of the solution decrease? Temperature decrease means it is endothermic. So yeah. And endothermic arrow is always upstairs. The B is the answer. What's represent the dot? That is catalyst is used because it lowers down the activation energy. That is activation energy for uncatalyzed reaction, and this is activation energy for catalyzed reaction. What happens to average kinetic energy of the particles if the absolute temperature is going to double? So it increased by the factor of 2. Which value of the reaction quotient shows the lowest relative amount of product at the particular amount? So if the quotient, reaction quotient, is higher than Kc, that means product is higher than reactant. If Q reaction quotient is lower than Kc, then reactant concentration is higher than product. So that's why the lowest value that's the lowest value. Which products are formed from the neutralization of nitric acid by calcium hydroxide? So calcium nitrate and water. That's very simple question. Which combination describe a strong Bronsted Lowry acid? So always remember, if the acid is strong, it's a good proton donor. Its base is always weak, always. Which change involves oxidation state? Oxidation, like hydrogen is +3 there, nitrogen -3, nitrogen 0 there, so that is oxidation. Nitrogen is +4 there, either there +2, so this is reduction. Nitrogen is 0 there, -3 there, so reduction. Nitrogen +4 there, so 4 -8, and nitrogen is +8. But for one nitrogen, it should be +4, so no change in the fourth reaction. So oxidation always like only in A. What's the formula of copper sulfide? Copper has a +1 charge, sulfur has -2, +1. When you swap the charge, it should be formed Cu2s. Cu2s. Which combination describe an electrolytic cell? So electrolytic cell is the kind of cell which actually change electrical energy into chemical energy. And that is absolutely non-spontaneous. That's why B is the answer. What's the formula represent ether? Ether is the thing in which there is the oxygen in between there are 2 carbons on the side. So 2 carbons, oxygen in between, that's why D is the answer. Which statement explain the increase in boiling point of homologous series? When London force increases, because hydrogen bonding are not there, polarity is not there, standard state is not there, only the force, London force, is there. Why does benzene undergo substitution more readily? Because benzene has the resonance in which bonds are too strong to break. The orange color disappear when bromine water is added to a compound X. It should contain a double bond. The double bond is only in A. Because double bond thing reacts with bromine. That's the chemical test in order to identify the bromine, by the way. What is the percentage error? So we have to find the percentage error. So there is the formula like the value which we have, like the experimental value, which is 2100 -35, which is literature value, divided by the literature value, multiplied by the 100. So we'll get the 40%. In which case would repetition produce an improvement in accuracy? Like a thermometer always gives low reading, electronic balance has not zeroed, judgment of endpoint of the titration. Yeah, that's why we have to repeat the measurement. Which technique is most likely to used for identification of functional groups? So always remember, for the functional group, IR is the technique which actually used to identify the functional groups.
Thank you for staying with me to the end. Don't hesitate to leave your question or request in the comment section. I'll see you guys next time.